That was the most disgusting game of football I've ever seen. A classic spoon bowl. Welcome back to Further North, everybody. I have finally been able to decompress. We've got Admin 3 from Close to a Flag here. He has confirmed he is decompressed after... Maybe you can help me describe this. What the hell did we just watch over in the West yesterday? Because it was ugly.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to be honest. I don't know, but there's got to be healthier things to do than that, than watch that.
There's got to be healthier things to do than be a North fan, mate, to be honest.
Man, it can't be good for me. It can't be good for us to be doing this. This is nuts.
And knowing, and like you said just before we started recording, knowing we're going to come on and do a podcast while watching it, and you're just sitting there going, oh, God, what am I going to talk about for an hour on this pod to give to the people? But hey, we won the game. We're here, and we're going to try and find as many positives and break down as many negatives as we can. But it was a very, very gross victory. 62-52 over in the West. 9 goals 8 to 6 goals 16, which very, very lucky on our end, I think, there. But let's summarize this game really quickly, and then we can go into some specific lines of the team, okay? How are you feeling going into it? Maybe we'll go from the start here. How did you feel going into the game? Did you think we were going to win this game comfortably? Do you think it was always going to be a scrap? How were you feeling?
I thought it would have been comfortable. It sort of ended up, I didn't think West Coast was going to be as competitive as they were. To their credit, they actually played relatively decently, but I was sort of thinking, all things point to us getting the win in some way or another. Maybe not like that, but I was feeling, again, cautiously optimistic in the same way I was for the Richmond game. So, yeah, I was feeling pretty good.
Deep down, I was thinking, I really hope I come into watching this game. I was down at Port Arlington this weekend, so I was with some mates, all at the beach house, having a good time. And I'm thinking, you know what? It would be really nice if North Melbourne just played our game, we looked good, and we beat them by 3 to 4 goals. I think that would have been fantastic. And they did the exact opposite of that. So the first quarter, we were looking pretty good. And what I was thinking to myself was this feels like Richmond, because we also destroyed the Tigers in the first quarter of that game. We really got off to a really good start. Curtis goals, Parker goals. Zach Fisher kicked 3 behinds this game, got a behind in this game. And then the point king and Paul Curtis, another goal. Look, we sort of did what we needed to do. It sort of felt like we should have been further in front, but then also West Coast kicked 5 behind. So 20-5 at quarter time. Were you ready to, the lid be off, or were you still, wow, we saw this against the Tigers, anything can happen in the second quarter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was sort of I didn't know what was happening with West Coast with their goal kicking. It didn't seem overly windy. There wasn't a crosswind or anything like that. So I was a bit confused as to what was going on. But, then again, 3 goals 2 to 0 goals 5, it's just a tale of we were just more accurate with the same number of scoring shots. As the commentary said on, I caught the end of the first quarter on KO, and the commentators on Fox were saying it didn't really tell an accurate picture of the game. West Coast was actually far more dominant, as we saw. I think they doubled the inside 50 entries compared to us in that first quarter. It just showed we were a bit more efficient with the footy and, just doing a bit more with it. But absolutely, I was sort of thinking if West Coast gets their shit together, we could be in trouble here. And we were.
Archer Reid kicked a behind where he absolutely should have nailed. Liam Ryan, I think, at the end, also just what you would think is an unmissable goal. So they missed 2 absolute sitters. Definitely should have at least had 2 goals on the board, let alone all the entries they were getting. And look, let's talk about the middle 2 quarters as a whole, because the third quarter was definitely worse, but the second quarter might have been the most boring quarter of football that has ever been played across every code of football in the world. I was sitting there. We scored 1 point in this quarter, and the Eagles scored 1-3. Literally the definition of spoon bowl. And then we go into the third quarter, and it was an absolute nightmare. We did nothing in this
Nah.
quarter.
Yeah.
Look, we were lucky to keep ourselves even remotely in it, like Simkin Gold, Curtis Gold in this quarter too. But other than that, it was all Eagles. And like you said with the forward 50 entries, they destroyed us with forward 50 entries, which is the biggest negative of this game. The amount of shots they had, the amount of opportunities they had was disgusting. The pressure was down. I'll try and find here the number of inside 50s because I should have got this up before, but give me a rundown of what you witnessed in that second quarter and into the third, because it felt like just the worst time ever to be a North Melbourne fan, and that is something I never want to watch again. And to be serious for a second, it really cemented the fact that even if we did win this game, we are not better than we're not much better than them. And I want to be, because we should be. Our list that was on the field compared to theirs on paper is miles better, but the system and the structure that whatever we're trying to do is not there. And we'll get to the midfield because that was pathetic, but we are nowhere near where we should be right now. And that is a low bar still. That is still bottom 4 team, in my opinion. We're still closer to the Eagles than we are whoever is fourth last, unfortunately. So, look, give me your rundown of those 2 middle quarters.
Yeah, look, I mean, that second quarter was just I think the third was actually worse than the second, bar the last maybe 3-4 minutes. But it was just a tale of not getting anything right. I don't think I've seen us turn over such easy, I guess, running, like basically gut runs through the middle so quickly and so often. And obviously West Coast missing absolutely everything under the sun really did keep us in it. It was really frustrating to watch, and it was a challenging watch. I think the one forward 50 entry we had in that third quarter before the 2 late goals, it ended up being a free kick and a 50-meter penalty. So,
yeah, it did too. I lost it. That was the point where I had to remove, because all my mates were around, so I had to remove myself for a second, compose myself, and then just get ready for classic spoon bowl football.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that sort of really accentuated it, was just like too much weight on handballs, too much weight on kicks, high kicks to players who were uncontested, which allowed the footy to be contested.
You're totally right as well. It was over possession of the ball, because some points we were trying to chip it short like we did against Collingwood, and it worked against Collingwood, but we would chip it around and sort of go sideways, forward a little bit, then back, and we wouldn't progress the ball and end up kicking it anyway. And there was times where off the half back line we're trying to transition and we just run out of options, or we make the wrong option. The amount of hospital handballs we would give to players. We were very corridor focused in this game. It looked like we were always trying to use the corridor. And if we can ever play that sort of football, that's exciting. That's what I want us to play. But, Sheezer would be waiting sort of in the center square to get that ball into the corridor. And then we would put the handball to him, a looping handball that took about 10 years to get to him. And then we'd just be under pressure and it'd be a ball up. And I think that was really, really frustrating in this game. So the inside 50s by the end of the game, 41-63, which does not suggest the dominance that the Eagles had. At a certain point, they more than doubled our inside 50s, and luckily they're rubbish and can't kick a goal to save their lives or get any good shots at goal. So, look, we got let off in this game massively. The fourth quarter, this is when it starts to get exciting. First off, we start the quarter and Tyler Brockman kicks a goal. And I didn't feel very good. I was almost guaranteeing a loss at this point. Oh, dear. How were you feeling when that goal went through?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking, look, it's interesting because probably those first 5 minutes of that last quarter, I was like not having a good time. But once O'Sullivan scored, that was when I was like, okay, the Eagles won't win this, we'll lose this. Like, that's basically it. You could tell the Eagles were playing a very, if you look at, for example, you look at their tackles inside 50, it's 23-6. It was absurd. And that sort of game is very effective if you're fit enough to do it, if you're fit enough to really press inside your forward 50. And being a younger team and being maybe not as good a team, we've seen it with North Melbourne, it tires you out. And good teams will run over the top of you, like we saw with Collingwood, for example. But we're not up to that level, of course. But I could sort of feel it was like, yeah, we're probably going to run all over the top of them. And it seemed like West Coast parked the bus with probably about 15 minutes to go. And it was really on us to actually sort of deliver. And to our credit, we did. But yeah, it was tough. Yeah. It was real tough.
It was very, very tough. But you're totally right. Like, we definitely outran the game better than them. That was the commentary was all over that. They could see the Eagles' pressure completely dropped off. Their pressure rating was much, much higher than ours, especially through the second and the third quarter. And we slowly got our grip back on the game and flipped it. And all of a sudden we were on top. So like you said, O'Sullivan goals for his first goal in football.
Yeah.
Zerha, a massive goal by him and a great game overall. It was the Zach Fisher show sort of in the last quarter as well.
He would have gone down as the unluckiest player, I swear.
Look, spoiler, we'll talk about this more when we get to the forwards, but like, I don't mind him down forward. I think even against Collingwood, he found his way to have a lot of shots at goal and he's creating opportunity and looks lively. So look, obviously rubbish kicking, but hey, he even said in a little post-match interview on the ground that those were very handy points. Dylan Stevens just putting through a point as well. But, Zerha, clutch again. And apparently the most clutch player in the AFL, Jai Simpkin, only kicks last-minute goals when you need it. The captain stands up and seals the game for us. The big ball putting us ahead and Simpkin sealing it off. How did you feel when that siren went? Because I wasn't happy. I was relieved. But what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was relieved. Sort of on Zerha's goal, it's sort of like if he didn't kick that, if he didn't kick that, we weren't winning the game. Because he is, in my opinion, when it comes to those sorts of moments, he's the most composed on our side.
I would agree.
I would say up there with Jai. I think Jai is too. And I think it was more, yes, I was relieved. However, I think a little small thing to take from it as well was when we get in front like that, we usually park the bus after, say, Cameron Zerha's goal, and watching us still try to generate opportunities even in that last minute, I think was fantastic to see. It was a great watch to really see us go for the kill. I think that was really good. And there was a bit of a shift too. I'm not sure if you noticed it. I remember Sheasel try to kick around the body to set up Nick Larkey when he was about 40 metres out from goal. Like that's one where you take the shot. Whereas with Zerha and Simpkins' goal, it was more just, find a mark or find a player inside 50 and just shoot anyway. And I think that was good just to see that shift, even if it was late. And look, at the end of the day, we got the win. It was sort of, just don't do too much of the footy. Don't play around with it and do that one little extra thing. Just no nonsense, get it inside 50, have a shot on goal. And that was good to see. But yeah, just overall, relief, to be perfectly honest, because that was, that was tough.
It was very tough, but something that will take the pressure off. We have jumped up the ladder to 16th, which no more spoon bowl for us. The West Coast Richmond game, all things going correctly, will be the next spoon bowl. I don't know if I feel okay about not playing spoon bowls, mate. I kind of got used to them, and it kind of was a comfort zone for me knowing we've got a spoon bowl every year. But hey, no more spoon bowl for North Melbourne as of right now. And also, we have more wins than we did last year. We now have 3.5 wins for the season. 0.5 of a win more than we got the entire year last year. So, to wrap this up before we go into the specific lines of the game and of the team, it is a little bit of banter that we have 3.5 wins, which is better than last year. But on a serious note, 3.5 wins at the halfway point of the season is much improved from last year. Now, is it good enough? Absolutely not. And that's not the standard we're trying to set. But you can't suggest that we haven't improved when we have got more wins. There's sloppy things in our game and there's major, major areas where we need to tighten up. But we've won more games and we've won, we're not one win, we're not two wins, and we nearly knocked off Brisbane. I think we're at a pretty good spot we needed to win this Eagles game for it to be a successful season. If we lose to West Coast or Richmond once this year, I think the season is a complete write-off. Unless we go and beat Collingwood, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Geelong, it's probably just not a season I'm going to look back on fondly. But we've beat the teams we need to beat. We beat everybody below us. We've beat the Ds who were around us, even though their form is up. And there is a few games coming up where if we can somehow get it together, and that Eagles game does not give me any faith we can, but so often in the AFL, you see teams get brought down to the lower teams level. It's like when Essendon played Brisbane a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Essendon were decimated in the back line. And all of a sudden you're like, well, why is the game close? It's just teams, when two AFL teams on the park, I'd say more often than not, sort of get down to each other's level a little bit and it gets a bit scrappy. And that seems to be what happened. Why do we look better against the Pies or against the Ds when we played them and look rubbish against West Coast? Is it because we're always rubbish? No. But we sort of got dragged down to their level a little bit. And we didn't play our game whatsoever. So, look, I'm clinging on to things here, but it is a positive. We've won more games than last season, and we've got about 12 games left. So let's absolutely take that. I'm going to let you decide this, mate. Do you want to start at the forward line or the back line?
We'll start with the back line, actually.
Okay. You go. You lead this off.
Yeah, so, I mean, one person I was maybe a little bit critical of, we'll start with the back three. Griffin Logue, I still think he's not all that. I just find his work rate relative to Toby or Chom just isn't there. It's a bit disappointing. I just sort of think he's not really doing as much as the other two, which, I was not really all that happy with. Toby, on the other hand, impressive. He had big Oscar Allen, kept him goalless in 7 touches. I mean, it's been a breakout year for him, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted that he's doing as well as he is, and he really seems a lot more confident as a player as well. You tend to back him a lot more, and I didn't last year when he was lining up against Curnow and Mackay, I think it was last year. Like, it just did not fill me with confidence at all. No. He was going to lose every single contest, whereas now you can see him working to his strengths and you can see him working into being a key position player. So fantastic to see. And then, of course, Chom, real shame, of course, with the the marking contest, knocking him out of the game. I'm not sure how long it's going to be or if he is going to miss weeks or if it's going to be a lot, but, he was serviceable for the time that he was on, and hopefully it's not going to be too long of an absence.
Yeah, I mean, we don't exactly know the extent. I think it was a shoulder blade that he's fractured potentially. I think he definitely misses the Fremantle game. And depending on what comes out through the week, if it is a hairline fracture or something, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks. And if it's more of a cleaner break, it could be double that. Which is what I saw. I think John Ralph reported that, I believe. If not, maybe I've got the journalist mixed up. But that is what was said. So, look, hopefully it's not too much. Hopefully it is just a very, very small hairline fracture or something like that, and he can miss a week or two. But, yeah, look, we will see with Chom. He's really grown to his own and been our most consistent defender as well. And at the time he played in this game, I think he was very, very good, especially early on when West Coast were pumping that ball in. He was doing a lot to intercept the ball and sort of playing one-on-one, but getting advantage side and sort of bullying his opponent out and taking the mark. I think he did really well. Logue's an interesting one. At the start of the game, I definitely wasn't loving what Griffin Logue was doing, but 7 intercept possessions for the game, which is our highest, equal highest with Toby Pink and Luke McDonald. So that's not too bad for him. Only 1 rebound 50. I'll go and look at some more of his stats here because I didn't feel like it was an overly impressive game from him, but especially if Chom does not play next week, which is very unlikely he does, I think you got to keep him in the team. Obviously, I'd be flying over another key because if Griffin Logue can get fit and start playing well, he's that third man up, almost play that old school Josh Gibson, Lockie Hansen sort of role and let Chom either float, like they can sort of interchange a little bit. Chom can float or Chom can play one-on-one this year. Toby Pink's going to lock down on your guy and let Griffin sort of play smaller or play taller. And I think that would be the ideal thing, but 9 touches for him, 5 marks. I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about Griffin Logue. I wanted to dislike it more than I did because I didn't love what I was seeing, but numbers wise, it looks okay. So I think he gets a game. Only had 2 clangers for the game, so it's okay. It was fine. Let's see if he can step up against his old team next week. Let's talk about a few of the other guys then. Some of the smaller guys. I thought Luke McDonald was really, really good in this game.
I agree.
Yeah, I think he was really, really solid. Even still online, I'm seeing people say that he's rubbish. In the middle of the game, there was North groups posting in how bad he is. I'm thinking, I don't know. I understand people can get, and I've had this with players. You've had this with players. We all have. There's players we like and we don't like compared to others, and we target them a little bit. But I don't know how you can watch that game and think he was that bad at all. What did you see with Luke McDonald? I mean, like 7 rebound 50s, 344 meters game, 7 intercept possessions. I think he was pretty solid.
I agree. Yeah, I think at this point, if you're having a go at Luke McDonald for games like that, you're just saying it because everyone else is. Like, it really, yeah, he was effective. He didn't feel unsafe with the footy. He was just doing what he needed to do. And I think our halfback line has actually taken a few steps forward, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I think I actually do think our problem lies with our forward 50 entries and not our rebounds out of defence. And they often start with the halfback. Yeah, and I think I think Luke McDonald was good. I think also, look, Caleb Daniel, I was not too unhappy with, and Hardiman, I think as well, is still taking massive strides. I think his ability to rebound is good. It's fantastic. I quite like it. Also McKercher too. I was
going to point out McKercher really quickly. Yeah. I've just got a couple of stats I might read out on a few of these guys while we talk about them. Rebound 50s for the game. Caleb Daniel was our highest for the game with 9.
Yeah.
McKercher 8. And I want to talk about McKercher in a second. Finn O'Sullivan 6. Dylan Stevens 4. And then you can, like, Riley Hardiman only 2, but I think he played his role very, very well. Even meters gained, like we can look here. Caleb Daniels 740 meters gained. McKercher 613. So the players down there really did their job. It was the midfield where everything fell down. So we'll talk about them.
Yeah.
Obviously after we talk about the defense, but like I said, Colby's game, I absolutely loved. He's been thrown around a lot in the last few weeks, a lot more halfback today, which I still think he looks so good off halfback when he's on. And if he can, him and Dylan Stevens play a lot of wing, and Dylan Stevens ends up in the back pocket a lot, sort of being that winger that pushes back, where Colby in the last few weeks has been that winger who can slightly push forward on the other side. And maybe if we can get it off halfback and get it through the midfield, he can be the link to be into the forward 50. 8 rebound 50s, 4 inside 50s, and 5 clearances for Colby. And I think he was our highest possession getter.
He was.
35 touches on 88% disposal efficiency, and 8 contested possessions as well. He's getting contested possessions, clearances, but also transitioning that ball, and got absolutely leather poisoned on the weekend. So, one of the better on the ground for me, Colby, on the day, because he's doing a little bit of inside, a little bit of outside. And you can put Finn O'Sullivan in that category as well. Maybe not quite the numbers, only 17 touches for the day, but, he was putting his head over everything. And in the last quarter, he really, really stood up. But give me your quick thoughts on those two young guys in Foss and Colby.
I mean, Foss, phenomenal. Got his first goal, obviously. I still think, his ability to evade tackles and then basically, as a result, create opportunities out of nothing and create runs out of nothing, I think is phenomenal. And he did that really, really well. And obviously, McKercher being the leading possession getter for the day, the speed he had, even late in the game, some of those runs off halfback in the fourth quarter were phenomenal. Like, I think for someone to have that fitness and that agility late in the game when everyone else is tired.
That was the difference in the end.
Especially the West Coast players who were evidently tiring. It meant that we could generate so many chances, and just by sheer probability, it's almost certain that we're going to run over the top of West Coast, and we did. Obviously, that doesn't always happen, but realistically, if a team is parking the bus, most of those transitions are going to come out of the halfback line or maybe a centre clearance. But the fact we're able to do that so often and so repeatedly and so often through McKercher and someone like Foz, that's all you really need. And eventually when you do have teams that are tiring, you are going to get those opportunities anyway.
How do you think this was Foster's best game? I think it was arguably, maybe it was just the step up in the last quarter, but I think this is like almost I don't think he was the best on or anything like that. It not necessarily the match winner, but it was almost like a match winning performance just with the stand up. And like you said, being able to run out the game and step up when we needed someone to step up. Now, you can counteract that with we shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place against the Eagles. But I don't know. Maybe not his best game. Maybe that's going too far overall, but definitely his most impactful game, I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, like you can argue that all you like, but at the end of the day, Collingwood shouldn't have been 3 points in front of us at 3/4 time. So it's sort of like at the end of the day, they got a win and got it comprehensively. We got it less comprehensively, but we still got the win. And at the end of the day, shit teams don't win games like that. Like North Melbourne at their worst didn't win those sorts of games and didn't stand up. I do think with Foz, I don't think it was his best game, but I do think it was his most mature performance. I think there were several moments where there were a couple of moments where we had it gone wrong, we wouldn't have won the game. And I think his goal, his 50-meter penalty and goal was one of those moments. The run of the play was almost completely with the Eagles at the time, and that was when the Eagles really started to lose confidence and really start to fatigue. So that had he missed, West Coast would have had possession, been able to slow the game down and sort of bring it back on their terms a little bit more. So I think to know, hey, I've got a shot on goal. We haven't really had much going for us this quarter. We kick it, we're only 2 goals down. I think that, yes, it obviously did on paper kickstart the comeback that we had, but I don't think it would have happened at all had he not done that. So I think it's just very mature from him to have that cool head and do that.
Yeah, most mature performance is a good way to put it. And I think, it's such a positive that Colby and Foss were the ones that sort of stood up in that last quarter to 18 and a 19-year-old. This is our future. And to see them at that age running out the game over the Eagles players who are, even some that are older than those two, I think that's such a good sign. There's other players that I would really like to be talking about to run out this game. And unfortunately, when we go to the midfield in a second, we're not going to talk about many of them at all. But a massive step up from Colby and Foss to almost play halfback and play midfielders to push our team over the line. So,
what's up, everyone? It's your boy, Big Ant. Look, let's just get pleasantries out of the way. Congratulations on the win. When the team needed it, your captain stood up and put the nail in the coffin for us. Now that that's done, though, I am a man in my late 30s who grew up in that era of watching Djakovic and Carey punch on, Harvey and Matera. Like, that for me was the prime of footy. I have very fond memories of West Coast and North going head to head against each other. Unfortunately, what I witnessed tonight has to be one of the worst games of football I've ever watched from both sides. How these two teams still exist is beyond me. At this point, you know what? Merge them, move them to Tassie, and just start a new franchise in Perth, because that was absolutely abhorrent. This game hurt more than my ex-fiance breaking up with me than text message. Like, I've hit a new low in my life after watching that game. Anyway, congratulations again. Hopefully you can keep up the momentum at Optus next week. Much love to you all still. Peace.
How to feel about that win, though? I mean, I have a pulse. That's something, right? I'd hate to think if we'd lost that game. Thank goodness we didn't. But hey, look, take the 4 points, Roof fans. On to the next week. My God, so much to work on.
Only North Melbourne can win a game of footy and somehow go backwards. What the hell did I just watch? Filthy. Gross. Yuck!
Hey, Josh and Co. Fair crack of the whip. What a win. I mean, fair income. Like, I could do a shoey out of a cattle farmer's boot better than what we were playing today. And my God, was that the most dead rubber game in history of football. But bloody oath, what a win.
We lost it today, but we got a result. We need to be better next week against Rio. How about the first in the last quarter was good in the whole game.
Let's go to the midfield now. This is when things fall off majorly. Just to summarize the midfield and my thoughts on the midfield group before we point out some individuals, this was the worst display I've ever seen from our midfield.
Absolutely.
Every one of those midfielders, maybe Bar Simpkin, I'm going to throw out, and Powling. Power was good too. But basically everyone else, and as a collective and as a team, our midfield was pathetic today. We won hitouts, we won clearance, but everything else we did, we got comprehensively beaten. There was not a single passage of play that I can think of that we ran through that midfield and did it cleanly, progressing it up the wing, winning it around the ground as well. Our tackling was piss poor. This was one of the worst midfield displays I think I've seen from North Melbourne. I'm genuinely really concerned about our midfield because midfield last year was our thing. The names on paper say our midfield is good. We don't have enough variety in this midfield at all. And I've said this for months, it feels like. And LDU, Powell, Simpkin, Parker, you know, these guys are all so similar in the way they play. Even if you put Will Phillips back in there, and shout out to Will Phillips getting 21 tackles in the VFL on the weekend. That's insane. But, you know, we're not putting Fossers and Colbys and things in there to mix up what we're doing. And I'm getting really, really worried about the midfield because, yeah, you can tell me that they're all high draft picks and they're all guns in their own right, young stars. They're not clicking at all. And unless our midfield gets a massive, massive shake-up, I don't think we're ever going to be able to win from the midfield in games. But do you sort of agree with that? How did you see our midfield maybe as a whole?
Look, I think the weaknesses that we've worried about all season probably came out the most. I mean, my thing is obviously with LDU, I think he just consistently does too much with the footy, and that was no exception, really.
He looked like he was in second gear to me. Like when he got the ball, he looked like, oh, I'm just going to jog out of here because it's the Eagles and it's easy. He didn't look like he was fully locked in. He had that predator mentality and just like his eye was glowing red and about to kill somebody. You know what I mean? And he needs to start switching on because that's a game that he should absolutely tear apart. And he looked like he was cruising through the whole thing.
And it really was a bit worrying. Like so many times, there were quite a few holding the ball free kicks against us, which I thought were absolutely fair. Like just taking too much time and too much of and that was probably, I think, the mentality. They thought they had too much time. Perhaps, like you said, maybe they thought it was, West Coast and that probably can take a bit longer. But at the end of the day, West Coast weren't playing that sort of game. They were really just going straight into it, committing into putting that pressure on and winning holding the ball for a kick. So I think LDU was the biggest example of it. I would actually go and say, Wardlaw was a little bit disappointing. I mean,
that's a whole talking point in itself. Let's break down Wardlaw right now because we've got a few messages about George Wardlaw. One in particular, you know who you are. He, for some people, and maybe almost me, I'm not saying fraud watch, but I just think something needs to happen with George. He either needs to step up in the next couple of weeks or he probably does need to be dropped. Now, I don't want to see him out of the team because we know what he can do and we know how much of a star talent this guy is. But 9 touches, I think he got 7 tackles, which was our most for the game. Let me just double check that. 7 tackles along with Shizu and Parker. 9 touches for the whole game, 44% disposal efficiency, only 2 contested possessions. That's not George Wardlaw stuff. No. 3 clangers for the game, only 200 metres gained. Something really, really needs to change. No clearances as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
look, that honestly, and if I'm going to take my love for him away, that's a droppable performance. If this was another player, and I know for me and everyone knows, if Tom Powell did that, I would be on here saying drop this man. And I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can. And would I drop him? I will give him one more crack. I'm going to give him one more crack to do something next week and to do it big and take the game by the horns because we know he can. But if he puts up anything like those numbers again, unfortunately, Will Phillips should be playing over him at the moment because numbers don't lie. So, George, I love you so much. Please do something next week. Otherwise, unfortunately, I think it's time for a little spell in the twos, get your confidence, kill some people who aren't good enough for the AFL, and then come back and be the star we know you can be. But, you know, we can't ignore how demoralizing those numbers are because they're shocking numbers.
Yeah. It was 44% efficiency. It's just you're right. Like that could for some be a droppable performance, and I think at least with George, you know, we know he and we trust him to be able to respond. It was, in my opinion, probably just a bad game, but you know, you're not putting a strong case when there are players like Will Phillips getting 21 tackles in the twos.
Even Urquhart played well in the VFL.
Yeah, which is an ungodly amount of
it is, isn't it?
Which is an ungodly amount of pressure, which evidently was lacking in that side yesterday. So, look, I think, you know, he definitely I reckon he starts again, at least for the rest of our time in Perth. But you'd really want to be responding against the Dockers. You'd really want to be doing a lot better. And that's the thing, because I know you mentioned like usually like midfield is our thing. Clearances are our thing. And so often we associate that with Wardlaw getting that scrappy ball get and then handing it off to a clean distributor like LDU. And when LDU is not distributing it cleanly and Wardlaw is just not getting any of the footy, especially let alone hard bulk footy, which is how you win clearances. Well, I mean, there's no amount of amazing work that Cherry can do to help when those two are the ones doing it. Now, obviously, Simpkins stood up, and obviously, you know, I think Parker was relatively serviceable as well, obviously got a goal. But when you're getting, you know, when so much of what North Melbourne's midfield is associated with, which is a hard ball win from Wardlaw and a clean disposal from LDU, when they're not happening, our midfield's just simply absent. And again, I think both of them will respond. I think both of them will get back to what they usually do. But I think it's really disappointing and just unlike George Wardlaw.
Yeah, I mean, look, it has been a little trend in the last few weeks, and I don't like admitting it because I love the guy. But yeah, his effort was there and his tackle pressure was there, but he really didn't get the ball outside of that. So something else you pointed to as well is Big X. He did give us first use a lot. We dominated clearance and dominated hitouts, but it's the rest of the midfielders not being able to capitalize on any of that. So shout out to him. But the one thing I've said for genuinely over a year now is if Tristan Xerri is getting the most clearances for us, our midfield is not clicking, and that is not his fault, and that is not anything negative on Big X. He got 10 clearances, and we know all of them are hacks forward. I don't expect anything else from him because he shouldn't be. He's not prime Todd Goldstein yet. He's not roving his own taps and running out of a pack. But Colby, who played off half back, who got 0 CBA attendances, got the most clearances for us outside of Tristan Xerri, and he had 0 CBAs.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Tom Powell was next with 5 clearances, 13 centre bounces. LDU got 4, Parker got 4, Sheasel 3. So we got the first use with the taps. I don't know, it was hit outs to advantage, I guess. But look, Xerri did everything he could possibly do to get us first use of the football, and our midfielders did not capitalise at all. Tom Powell in this game, the guy that everyone thinks I hate, 30 touches. I think he was pretty solid all game. Nothing game-breaking by him, but what he seems to be doing in the last month especially is popping up in the right places and making the right decision. Not breaking the game open per se, but 30 touches, 66% disposal efficiency, which is okay. Probably want a little bit higher than that, but his contested work is good. His tackle work is good. And like I said, he's popping up in the right places to be effective. So good game by Powell. Sheasel in the last quarter as well stepped up massively. One of the players that did get us over the line. Just once again, nothing game breaking. No one in the midfield broke the game open, to be fair, except for maybe Colby. But Sheasel played really, really well. 28 touches, 78% by foot. 6 contested possessions, 7 tackles, 7 marks. So
Yeah.
he played his role. Once again, nothing game breaking by him, and I'd still like that step up from Sheasel like we saw last year. But he was a really, really big positive. Maybe you can chat about Luke Parker and what you saw about his game, and then we'll get on to Simpkin. What did you think of Luke Parker's game? Do you think, or if you want to talk about Sheasel as well, feel free. But like Sheasel and Parker, give me your thoughts on their games.
Yeah, look, I think Sheasel got better as the game went. Obviously, 12 touches in the last quarter is phenomenal. And I think he really cleaned himself up. There were some things that I think he didn't do right. Like I said, he was, instead of taking shots himself, he was still looking for options when there were, gettable shots on goal. That being said, I do think, he was one of the few players who really, and I actually said this in the last quarter, and my partner and I were watching, and I was like, this is all the kids. This is all this is all McKercher and Sheasel and O'Sullivan all standing up and actually doing something, because it just seemed like some of our more experienced heads weren't really quite doing that, but spare for maybe Parker, who I'll actually touch on in a little bit. But I thought Sheasel got better as the game went, and I think really, stood up when it mattered. Wasn't his best game, I don't think, all things considered. That being said, I do think, had he not done that, we probably wouldn't have won the game. He was, I think he actually set up the sealer for Jai. And there were, I think, 3 or 4 options around him to distribute to, and Jai was the one in the best position for that. And honestly, probably the one you want kicking the match-winning goal. So,
That's what he does.
You're obviously not thinking about that in the moment, but he was able to, spot those players, find the best option and take full advantage. So, yeah, I think he did it when it mattered, and maybe that's just something a good player needs to do.
Yep. And Luke Parker, do you think – I think this was a little bit of a bounce back maybe from his last couple of weeks. Look, numbers-wise, 22 touches, 14 handballs in this one, but 7 tackles as well, 12 contested possessions. So he was putting his head over everything. 4 clearances, only 8 CBAs. So not as many centre bounce attendances from him, playing slightly more forward, and got around the contest a lot still, pushed off half forward into that. But I don't know. I think this is maybe more the role we wanted him to play, and we tried to let the younger guys or the midfield that we would all ideally have dominate, and they just didn't. So I would probably like to have seen him go back into the midfield, especially through the 2 middle quarters a little bit more, just because we were winning so little. But that being said, there was so little goals kicked. There's probably not many CBAs to attend, to be fair. But kicked a massive goal, Parker. I think it was in the first quarter, I believe. Yeah. So, how did you see his game?
Yeah, I think it was definitely not a bad performance by any means. I think he was maybe brought in, and my theory is, maybe he was brought in because, or did what he was brought in to do, which, when there were maybe some players not really standing up, those ones who are sort of maybe in their prime, having a more senior head that's sort of able to do things consistently, and do it relatively well. 77% efficiency, 22 disposals, 12 of them contested is like, that's good numbers. That's good numbers. It's obviously not, prime Luke Parker numbers. This isn't like, his early days or, maybe when he's at his best. But that being said, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty reliable stuff. And I think, like you said, he wasn't always at every centre bounce, but being able to sort of be around the contest and sort of be close to or on ball, I think he kind of did what he needed to do. And I think having those mature heads there, they're the ones that stop games like this turning to shit. And or when the shit hits the fan, they're the ones that are kind of at least doing something and providing a framework for the other players to really work around. And I actually think he did that today or yesterday.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, we know Luke Parker's bad games, in quotations, are still pretty good games. He hasn't. I don't think he's ever played a bad game for us. And look, maybe not as good as he was at the start of the year, but a little bit better in this game. And hey, the young guys really stepped up, so maybe he didn't have to. But, like we said for that Collingwood game last year where we're up by so much and lost, if we had a guy like that, then that's the guy you shove into the middle. And I probably would like I said, seen him take a couple more CBAs just when we weren't on top in the midfield. But hey, we won the game, so it's okay. The last midfielder we will talk about, the captain, Jai Simpkin. Give me your rundown on him. Him or McKercher, you can pick for the best midfielder of the day, but he was fantastic, and once again has kicked a sealer over in the West. It's just what he does.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Jai was, I thought, incredibly reliable. I don't really think there were many moments during the game, and this is actually something I've noted just during the season. He's actually done, like, he's been so much more reliable as a sole captain, I think, and sure, he wasn't, he was 65% disposal efficiency, but it didn't feel like it. It felt a lot higher, and it really felt like what he was doing right outweighed what he was doing wrong significantly.
There's none of those big turnovers he was doing like 6 weeks ago or so either.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like the one that jumps to mind for me was obviously like in gather round against the Gold Coast. That, in
Sydney
my
one as
opinion,
well.
sort of really made their heads drop. And I think he's been setting a good example for the team. I think he's been doing all the right things. I think he's been doing everything he needs to do. Yeah, so like to be quite honest, I'm pretty happy with what he's been delivering lately.
2 goals too as well for Jai, which I said a few weeks ago I'd really like to see him play more in the forward line, and it does feel like he's maybe attending some centre bounces. I'll just look up how many CBAs he got for this game. So only 5. So he definitely has been playing more forward. He was getting double-digit CBAs not that long ago. So definitely playing more forward, and you're seeing when he plays forward, we get goals. 2 goals too. He did his part. And just kicks big goals, to be honest. So I really like the role that Simpkin has found. I think this is probably his perfect role, where it is playing more forward, maybe not as many centre bounces, but like a him and a Parker are there just in case. Let's see if these younger guys can do it. And like we've pointed out, unfortunately, I don't think they did, especially our big dollar man LDU needs to definitely step up next game. We've been saying that for a few weeks though, but it's good to see your Colbys and your Fossers and that sort of stuff stepping up when need be, and maybe he can play down in the forward line and be there to kick those clutch goals because he's a clutch player. We can't deny it. He's kicked plenty of goals late in games. The Essendon game, he kicked a really, really good goal at the end to keep us in the fight. It's what he does, and I think if he's down in that forward line and we can rely on some of the other midfielders late in games, that's going to set us up because we do run a lot of games close this year.
Yeah.
And if he's down that forward line, I think we're a much better shot of winning the game. So let's go to the forward line. Point out some names for me here, mate. Who do you want to start with?
I don't know. It depends where we want to really start. But, I mean, obviously we touched on Powell and O'Sullivan in that forward line, but I was quite disappointed with Larky. I think his ground ball gets were pretty poor, and his marking ability was quite poor. He wasn't really playing on his terms quite as much as maybe he usually does. So I was really disappointed. He didn't score a goal, did he?
No, 0 goals, 0 points, 11 touches.
Yeah, that's
for that
rare.
game. So
that's rare for him.
Yeah, it's another one like a Wardlaw for me, where he's one of our favourites, but. And I don't think you can drop Larky. We don't have the forward depth at all like we do the midfield to even drop him. So the thought of dropping him, I've heard a lot of people online saying like, bring Will Dawson in and Finbar. I mean, imagine if we go into a game with no Larky and we got Finbar and Will Dawson as our 2 key forwards. Yeah. I would not be betting on us in that game. So look, Larky's got a lot of, credit in the bank. He needs it right now because he's not playing very well at all. Probably his worst game for the year, this game as well. I think, is it the only game he hasn't kicked a goal? I think it might be only for the year. So, I'm sure as a vice captain of the club, he more than anyone would know he needs to step up. And I also give him a tiny pass because the midfield was so bad.
Yeah.
What sort of service are we giving this man? And it is just bombing it long, and he's not going to do that. And that's what I liked. And that's why I was so positive after that Collingwood game, because our chip mark game was creating space. And that's perfect stuff for him to be able to lead into and find gaps, because if he's having a couple of shots a go, he's probably going to kick a couple of goals. So, look, our midfield is massively to blame why Nick Larkey isn't kicking as many goals. But he did kick 71 goals in a season where our midfield wasn't very good anyway. So, look, need a massive step up from Larky. I don't think you can drop him. I maybe would try and shuffle more things around him. But then the other side of that is, and maybe we'll go to these guys now, Paul Curtis and Cam Zerha have stepped up so much this year. Maybe that is taking away from Larky's output per se. And look, he should still be kicking goals, don't get me wrong. But all those three guys are all around the 24, 25 goal mark this year. So talk to me about Paul Curtis and Cam Zerha, because I love this duo down there, almost as iconic as a Gat and Tripodi combo.
Oh,
so,
absolutely. You're
how are we
speaking my
feeling?
language.
There we go. I knew you'd like that one, mate. So Paul Curtis, Cam Zerha, let me know your thoughts on them, because Zerha has stepped up massively and Paul Curtis 3 more goals, so he's back to his best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're also playing to their strengths as well. Zerha taking some good pack marks as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, Curtis, obviously his third goal was incredible from the boundary. And I think that's the good thing as well. It's proving again that it's not just Jack Darling. Like, obviously he didn't really have a standout game either, but it's proving that we don't just need Suv. We don't just need Nick Larkey to provide the goals, because we've got other players who are doing that themselves and doing it consistently well too. With regards to PC, obviously, like he's having, he's not really having like a 6-goal game, but he's getting like 3 goals a match. Like, it's keeping us in games. Zerha, obviously, like I said, incredibly composed, incredibly just able to pop up in those really crucial moments. Those 2 goals in the last quarter, I mean, to have that composure, again, like I said, if he's one that misses, chances are we don't get the job done. If he's not on his game, usually we're not either. And whereas Nick Larkey, I kind of feel like, besides yesterday, kind of doesn't really matter whether we win or lose. He's kind of always going to have that scoreboard pressure anyway. But I feel like those other 2 really complete the piece. They really stretch defenses as well. It means that they can't necessarily double team Larkey, or if they do, it means that they don't put their strongest defenders on our other 2. And I think that's really, really good. And it means, again, we don't need those forwards to step up all the time to get those goals. And imagine, like, look, we still beat West Coast without Larkey or Darling scoring. Like, pop those 2 in the picture, have all 4 of them firing. Look how good we could be. Look how many options we've got going in. And again, I actually think it's a matter of, just making sure that we have distribution into the forward line that plays to our forward strengths. Now, obviously, Zerha and Curtis did that quite well, but we've just got to now do that for Larkey and Darling.
If you can isolate Zerha or PC one-on-one, I would back them more times than not to win that. And I don't think it's any coincidence they're playing quite well when they're the 2 players that I think can make the most of those long kicks into the 50 as well. So shout out to them, having fantastic years. And yeah, you're right. If Larkey and LDU and Wardlaw, those guys, if what are meant to be our best players can fire, and it's been half a season, so it might just be one of those years to run out the year and we scrape through, I guess. But if we can ever because the floor has been raised at North Melbourne this year, like the players that weren't producing last year, even your Dylan Stevens, even your Cam Zerhas, who was flat last year, Luke McDonald, there's so many across the park you can name. Toby Pink not being in the squad where we came in, you were scared. These players are much, much more reliable, but we haven't got the same output from LDUs, from Larkies, from Sheezels and that stuff. So if we can ever combine those 2 things, I think we can be a really dangerous team. But how do you combine it? I mean, we don't know. That's why we're not coached. But hopefully Clarko can figure that out soon. You saw Clarko pacing around the box. I don't think he stood. I think he was standing the whole game. I don't think he sat down once.
There wasn't much real estate in those coaches' boxes anyway.
No, it was very trestle table set up sort of thing going on in there. And yeah, I think there was a time he was about to put, he almost shadow boxed the wall a little bit a couple of times as well.
He was just giving him a couple of gentle love taps. I saw that.
That's
and I was just like,
a throwback to the good old days.
He's not looking very happy.
I wouldn't have been too, mate, to be fair. So one player I want to shout out here, and once again, stats are not going to tell you what this man did. I loved Constanti's game. I've never seen a man throw himself in front of the Flames as much as he does. Look, how many tackles did he get for game? So only 4. I'm only on the AFL website here. I don't know his pressure acts, but they must be through the roof. He must have got double-digit pressure acts, or unless I'm seeing things. But the amount of pressure he put on genuinely gave us shots at goal or maintained possession for us when Eagles were trying to transition the ball out. Like, this is why he's in the team, because even though he didn't get on the scoreboard, which he needs to do, and I'm not excusing that, but those little things he does are at a different level than Turner ever did them, or at a different level than, I mean, I'm not even going to drop Phoenix Spicer or Jack Marnie's name in here. So he does them at a much more elite level, and you can see him throw. He got some great smothers in this game. His pressure was everywhere. He was a tackle threat everywhere he went. He put the Eagles under pressure, which led to quick kicks out, which is going to lead to us intercepting the ball a bit and being able to get them into the forward line. So you look at it on paper and you just go, oh, another average Constanti game. But I loved what he did. And if he can find a way to get on the scoreboard, which he has been doing, to be fair, but maybe a little bit more, I really like him. And look, shout out Zach Banch. He kicked 3 goals in the VFL on the weekend, but he's played 1 game for North in the VFL. Let's not think he's going to come in straight away. But I just don't think Constanti should be in the droppable conversation with that sort of effort that he's putting out. So, look, massive shout out to him. But I want you to talk to me about Zach Fisher. 3 points for the game, played a lot down in that forward pocket. How did you see his game?
Well, like you said, handy points. But I thought he was going to go down like he did with that Collingwood game last year where he almost had the winner. But he's kind of in a way been the unluckiest player with regards to his shots. But then again, handy points. Wouldn't have gotten in front if not for them. But also I think as well, he is finding those opportunities and he is finding ways to get shots on goal. And he's one of those engine room players that I always keep bringing up. And he's, really working hard, getting the footy, always being around the contest. He's kind of one that you always kind of see there. Or if he gets the footy and he's not in a real contested space, you kind of like, oh, well, he's going to get on the move. He's going to really get on the move and start going. So yeah, you're right. Like sort of really pushing forward to the footy, I think has been really, really good. He's been really impactful there. His obvious flaw is finishing the job. 3 behinds, it's not great. And it very well almost could have cost us the game. But that being said, I still think that there is a lot to like about him, and I think we're a better side with him in the starting 22.
Yeah, I think he looks the most dangerous in that forward line as well. He looks a lot quicker and a lot zippier than I've ever seen him at North Melbourne when he's down in that forward pocket as well. And I think he makes good choices when he's down there. I guess, his decision making isn't under as much pressure as it would be on the half back line. So look, he's getting opportunities. Yes, his finishing needs to be better, but he's getting the chance. He had 7 contested possessions as well, which would arguably be a career high for him, I would say. So look, I don't know. I like him down there. I don't mind a Constanti Fisher duo down there with a PC and a Zerha and then Larkey. And look, Darling is playing okay, but I wouldn't mind a Will Dawson getting a shot or a Teakle. I was a bit disappointed Teakle didn't play, so we've got someone for the backup ruck. But, I think I would roll with that for now. I think if our midfield, I think everything stems from the midfield. The defense did so well, not letting them score for one. I know they kicked a lot of points, but I feel like that's the midfield. It felt like it was the midfield letting the transition go in so quickly and such a lack of pressure. So I think the defense stood up pretty well in this game. I think the forward line did what they could with the rubbish entry. I genuinely think the midfield nearly lost us this game.
Yeah.
So look, if we can tidy up the midfield, which is meant to be our best area, I do think we can run out better winners in this game. But hey, we won the game and it is what it is. I guess the last player really to point out that we haven't talked about is Robert Hansen Jr. Not a game. Does he play next week? I would probably suggest no. 4 touches for an entire game, didn't get subbed off, so a touch a quarter. I don't know, man. I don't know exactly what he brings. Surely you could swap a Cooper Harvey for him, or an Eddie Ford, someone, or even Will Phillip. I mean, there's too many midfielders. You've got to bring a midfielder out if you're going to put another midfielder in at this point. So Robert Hansen, at the start of the year, looked a lot better, a lot more polished, especially in the preseason in the first couple of games. I really liked what I saw, but it maybe hasn't quite clicked for him. I guess a chance in front of his home crowd in WA as well. So if we're going to make a change for next week, I think that's maybe the change that you make. I mean, Wardlaw, once again, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if you took Wardlaw out. I would, my heart would be upset. My head would probably be like, look, it's fair enough. What do you think with Hansen Jr.? Is the experiment sort of coming to a little bit of an end when we did get a Zach Banch? Cooper Harvey is kicking a lot in the VFL. Do you think it's time that we sort of say we need to give someone who's going to be part of the future potentially a bit more of a run?
Almost. I think.
Okay.
I think there's, time enough for him to prove himself. I think if not this season, then it will be never. And then I do think you're right. It is time to give a Cooper Harvey or a Zach Banch a go. But I do think that, he's like he has delivered in patches, but for a team to be improving to the level we want to be, it just doesn't seem like he's going to rise to that level. I hope he does. But it's more likely that it's not going to happen.
Because he's not getting the ball on the forward line as well. So
No.
He's not the small forward, the Lindsay Thomas-esque player that maybe we would hope when we saw a little bit of zip, a sidestep in the forward line and a bit of creativity. And then when he's up in the midfield, once he gets the ball, I think he's a good user of the ball, but he's just not big and strong enough to get the ball in those positions. I mean, 4 touches for the game. Where was he on the field? Because I didn't even really see him on the broadcast at all. So, look, he obviously would have been subbed if Chom didn't get hurt. But that's I would be trying someone who deserves it maybe a little bit more at this point. But look, that's sort of the wrap up of the game here. We've got Sean Atley Club Champ and the golden helmet moment of the game to come. Sean Atley Club Champ. I've got 3 players I think it has to be out of.
Yep.
And we can pick the order here, but for me, it's Zerha, it's Colby McKercher, and it's Jai Simpkin.
Yep.
They're the 3 best for me when you look at the overall games. I think Tristan Sherry competed super hard all day and did everything he could for the midfield, but I think the midfield arguably let him down, which I know isn't his fault, but I think the other guys slightly edge him out. Foss, a shout out as well. I think Toby Pink's worth a shout out, keeping Oscar Allen goalless. Which is a fantastic performance by him. But I guess, as we know, the defenders don't quite get the plaudits that they deserve. And genuinely, I would have thrown Constanti in there just because I think his pressure and his effort was fantastic, even though he's not going to get a vote for the game, I know. But just shout out to him because, no goals, but did everything else for me. So I really like, what he's bringing. But do you have anyone else to throw in there outside of those 3 in Simpkin, Zerha and McKercher?
You know what? I'm not going to argue with that. I think that was going to be mine anyway. McKercher for me gets the 3. That's where I sort of see him. I think just being such a consistent winner of the footy and at such a high efficiency and, kind of really starting most of our runs in that last quarter. I actually think Zerha and Simpkins, efforts in that last quarter oftentimes came off the back of his work. So I think,
you're not wrong.
Yeah,
he was the only one driving us forward, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah. And oftentimes it was only him. And I think when no one else was doing it, he was the one that was only doing it every time and usually doing it well every time too. Whereas maybe other players were doing it, but maybe weren't completing the efforts or getting the ball past halfway.
Finishing the job like he was,
Yeah, I would probably say between Simpkin and Zerha.
This is hard for me. I'm trying to think because Zerha... 2 goals, but Simpkin, I think it has to be Simpkin only because Simpkin got 2 goals too, Zerha 2-1. And if they were the same stats, but Simpkin didn't kick the sealer, I'd maybe switch it. But Simpkin in his overall game, I think was very good as a captain's performance. So I think I'd go Simpkin then Zerha, even though Zerha kicked the goal to put us in front and I guess is the game winner, not the game sealer. But it feels harsh. But do you agree, or would you flip him?
I mean, he also got the game. He also, I think, got the goal that got us back in the game, got us within a kick.
Yeah, he did too. This is hard.
I think just from a pure clutch point of view, I'd actually say Zerha. But I think from a maturity point of view, I do think Simpkin because it's a step forward to put away a game, to actually put away games, and it doesn't matter when you do it. But the fact that we've actually put away, how many times have we won a game by less than a kick and had opportunities to actually win it? Like, let's be real, that has happened many times. And
Absolutely.
I think seeing that and watching that happen and watching us, have that composure to put away the game, that last 40 seconds, sure, West Coast could have won. But, let's be perfectly honest, none of us were thinking we were going to lose from that point. And that's a big shift. That's a big shift. Instead of sweating it, Jai Simpkin misses, and then we see another kick up the middle from West Coast, likely, probably bombing it forward and maybe having a shot after the siren, right? So that's why I think Simpkin gets it over Zerha. Purely, again, he was the right place at the right time. So, maybe Zerha was unlucky for him to not land in his lap. But I do think that Simpkin was kind of just there, and also just his efforts throughout the game I think are really good. So look, I think he gets the 2 over Zerha, but again, both did what they needed to when it mattered.
Yeah. Okay. Colby 3, Jai 2, Bull 1. I think that's fair. I think that's the way I would go. I'm going to go a bit of a rogue one, but what would you give me for the golden helmet moment of the game for this game? I mean, Jai or Bull's goals are obvious, but is there anything else you can throw to, or even a performance or something?
It wasn't a game laden with highlights. Let's put it that way. So it wasn't really, it wasn't lighting the world on fire. I actually do have to say it would be, again, out of Bull or Jai's one, I actually again have to go with Jai. Because again, it is one thing to put your team in front, but it's another thing to win a game. It's another thing to have that composure to do that. And that's something we've lacked for a very long time. So I think as a result, I would probably say, give it to Jai.
I'm going to sway this slightly, and I'm going to give it to just Toby Pink's overall game.
Yep.
Not that he did anything flashy. It was a gross defensive performance, but keeping Oscar Allen to 1 point for the game, I know it's not a moment per se, but I'm going to give my golden helmet here to Toby Pink, the red helmet potentially, because I didn't even think that at the end of the game. After I went and looked at the stats after the game, I was like, Allen didn't do anything in that game. And Toby Pink was his matchup. With Chom going down, the defense being under a lot more pressure.
That's a good shout.
Fantastic job.
It's a really
by
good
Toby
shout.
Pink. Yeah. So I'm going to give him my performance / moment of the game. Toby Pink keeping Oscar Allen goalless.
And I mean, realistically, I kind of forgot Oscar Allen was playing, and that's rare because, I mean, sure, he's not playing for a great team at the moment, but he's always been impactful and he's always, kind of done well for West Coast. So to keep him goalless, I think is phenomenal. And like you said, in the context of Chom going down, I think that's actually phenomenal. I think that's great from him. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now I want to give him a vote in the Sean Atlee Club Champ.
I don't know. Maybe this
should we tack on one extra vote?
You could.
It's you know what I've done for the 2 wins this year? I've tacked on one. I've put 4 players in the 3 and given 2 1 votes out.
Okay.
And I know if people look when I post the graphic online and don't listen to the pod, I understand you'll be spewing from some other performances, but let's give Toby Pink 1 vote for keeping Oscar Allen goalless when Chom went down. I think if anyone's listening to the pod and then sees the graphic a little bit later in the week, surely no one is going to give me backlash on that. So screw it. It's my pod and I make the rules. Toby Pink also gets 1 vote in the Sean Atlee Club Chat. Because now we've just chatted about it in depth a little bit more. I know we mentioned it at the start of the pod, but that's a great performance from another great performance from Toby Pink.
Yep, exactly. And I think, I don't think we should be complaining with it because it was good. It was a very good performance.
Okay. Well, let's see. And if there are any negativity in the comments about those votes, I need Close to a Flag Army to come and back me up on that. As the leader of the Close to a Flag Army, I need you to make sure and sanction that one. Because you should be defending Toby Pink to the end, mate.
Oh, mate, I'm a lobbyist, so
that's right.
Yeah, it's absolutely happening.
The only other thing from this game I'll point out is I saw it, and I don't have it in front of me. I wish I screenshotted it or something. But once again, another Colby versus Harley Reid game where pick 1 v pick 2 are playing against each other, and Colby has just absolutely slaughtered the other man in stats. I mean, Harley Reid, 19 touches, better than his performance last year. I think it was 12. 78% efficiency. Yeah, Harley Reid moments, but not the player we all seem to think he is. And I think he's got a lot to prove in the AFL. Look, Colby's had a slightly down year, but the averages across the board for Colby are much, much greater. So once again, I think justifying maybe a strategic play from us to lose that last game. We actually tricked the entire AFL world into getting the better player. So half banter, but half real as well. Colby McKercher currently is a better AFL player than Harley Reid, which is crazy because every graphic I see, Colby isn't even in the top 10 of that draft. And I'm like,
Exactly.
it is just ridiculous that people aren't rating this guy. I know he started a bit slow, but he's been really, really good the last month, and his bad performances are still not diabolical. So anyway, I'll leave that one there. But Colby is greater than Harley Reid and always will be. You heard it here
Exactly right.
Look, we'll finish it up here. We were running a little bit early before, but then we got into Toby Pink chat, and that really went deep. I was going to point out I'm just going to give you some quick numbers from the VFL this week because it was a good win, but an even spread of goal kickers as well. Like obviously we talked about Will Phillips, 21 tackles. Surely he's got to be able to get into that team. I think Urquhart played a great game. 13, what is this? It says 13 hit-outs. Oh, no, 13 handballs. Don't worry. 5 tackles, 16 touches, 1 goal for Urquhart. I heard he was very, very good. Eddie Ford doing a job off half-back again. And Zach Banch, 3 goals in his debut performance. Imagine if he played next game. That would be so exciting. Braden George kicking 2 late goals as well. Good. Looked a little bit exciting, which is very, very good. Dawson Dersma and Goad. River Stevens also kicking goals in that game. Yep. So, look, shout out to all of those guys. Is there anyone? I'm trying to find some key defense numbers. I heard Callum Dawson was very good. I watched the highlights of the VFL because I didn't have time to obviously watch the game because I was away, but the highlights of the VFL games are absolutely ridiculous. Werribee got smashed, right? And all they showed was Werribee kicking goals. And every time they would go to the next Werribee highlight, we'd piled on 20 points. And I'm like, who puts these highlights together?
Yeah,
and
exactly,
it was the same against Collingwood when we smashed them. I watched the 5-minute highlight reel, and every time we got a highlight, we'd put on 25 points.
Yeah,
I'm like, can you show some more of the goals? We'd kick 3 goals, and they won't show, and they'll get some pies bloke dribbling one in from the goal square. It's ridiculous. So anyway, shout out to the VFL. Very interesting to see what happens at the selection table. But let's finish it up there because I don't want it to go too long. Please tell us where we can find you, good sir. All the things you do. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but hey, if anyone doesn't know North Melbourne Close to a Flag, give it a plug.
Look, North Close to a Flag on all of our socials. Of course, Bay 29, which will be back when we have our next home games in Melbourne. We've had some questions about the replacement away games. Unfortunately, we just do the home games at Marvels. So, look, we'd love to see everyone down there because they're great fun and we love, hosting it and everything. And, feel free to follow us on socials and, we'll hopefully see you in Bay 29 because it's always a good day out.
Fantastic. All right, let's leave it there. Let's go take a couple of cold showers through the week just to get off that disgusting mess that we saw on Sunday. And then we come up against the Dockers, which will be very exciting. But there's going to be a preview out on Thursday night / Friday morning for you guys, just like normal. So thank you for tuning in once again. Thank you, Admin 3, for coming on once again. We'll chat to you guys soon.
Hey, guys.